what they should do with it. And from especially in particular with this one young lady who does had the disposition of she wanted black people to feel empowered in the way that they have to do it themselves, because ain't nobody else is going to do it for them. And she was very distrustful of black politicians, because in her mind they didn't do anything. Even though they got put into the position of power, they didn't do anything to help her or people like her when they were younger. They didn't do anything with the power that they were given. And so when she kind of spoke about that, she was very antagonistic toward the other black people that who were saying that, you know, they put in place a system to promote black growth and stuff. And yeah.
I
Okay, where
personally,
we at?
Nowhere really.
yeah, Chris Jr. was just starting off with some of his impressions and thoughts and just kind of summary from what he heard. I personally didn't get the chance to watch it, so I haven't the chance to watch it yet.
So for those who didn't get to watch it, and just give a brief summary over basically what it was all about. So it was basically essentially about they got a couple of, I guess you can say, leaders or prominent black people together to talk, black and some white people, to talk about racism in America and basically what they should do about it. Like this big thing, and there was the audience there, and what, and in their conversation they had um, talked on many things, from the how the effects of various stuff on the black community, like schooling, and how schooling has gotten worse from how it was in the 60s, and all this other stuff about how there is a inequality for black people. There's a very big disparity between black and white people, and they were really just talking about basically how they should alleviate that, or how they should fix that. And they were also talking about putting the blame for black people's lot in life on basically on white people, because there's a disparity, and that this disparity was caused by white people, and that these white people were not being accountable over actions that they have done in the past. And that was a lot of what the conversation kind of stemmed from, at least in my perspective, when they were talking about racism. A lot of it was just talking about these white people, they are not holding themselves accountable for the actions that they have done to us, and that black people should basically feel empowered or some way fix the system, or I don't remember, but it was something on the lines of that.
Mhm.
So who all is on? I see CJ, Rando, Chris Jr., Chris, Michael. One of them says Shane.
Yes,
Is
that would
Shane on?
be. Yeah, he is.
Yes.
All right. Hi, Shane. How's it going?
Same as always.
All right. Put your picture on so we can see you and introduce yourself.
Oh, I couldn't do that on my computer because of the sticker thing that's on here, but I'll see if I can try to move it. It might take a little while though.
Oh, okay. Just introduce yourself.
All right. My name is Shane. I'm the son of Galaxy Note 9 or Chris Anderson, and Chris Jr.'s brother.
Okay. So, all right. Well, it's good to have you on, and feel free to share what you think, your thoughts, different things like that.
Right.
So nobody was able to watch the video, right?
No.
But besides you, Chris Jr.
I watched it. I watched it.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched it as well.
Okay, so Micaiah watched it, Michael watched it, Chris Jr. watched it.
And I watched it.
Oh, you watched it, Randall?
Yeah, I'll accept the last 15 minutes. It got a little intense.
Yeah, I did not watch. I only got in about 15 minutes, but there were several things that I saw on that 15 minutes. The reason why I asked to watch it, asked everybody to watch it. Part of while I was on the vacation, there was. I'm gonna put my picture up and see if I can do it. We're driving right now. Bev is driving for me, so. While I was on vacation, there were some challenges that came up, and of course the group the couples retreat that we go with, everybody is Black. Let's see. Some of them, only one person, David Hargrave and Krista Hargrave are the only two that are from Church of God. Just about everybody else is there. Some of them are friends from Ohio. Some of them they moved to North Carolina. So two couples live in North Carolina. Three of us live in Ohio, different parts of Ohio, and one lives in Tennessee. So just kind of give you a backdrop. And so there was a discussion that I got a part of, that I was in a part of, and part of the discussion was someone brought up the Black community, and they were saying that we needed to build our own community. We needed to have our own if you would say to some degree, like Black Wall Street, what we had in Tulsa. And so then there began to be different comments on that. I'm not gonna go through all the comments right now, but that thing, and there's another conversation that I had on a totally different topic. Plus the video really got my mind stirred up. The little bit I saw of the video got my mind stirred up. And so trying to give a little bit of context. Part of the video is, I think the question that I have is, let's see, trying to remember how I asked it. I've asked it while we're in the group, I've asked it in several different ways. One of the questions that I asked while I was down on vacation was, if in society, psychology, going to school for psychology, if a person goes, this is an example, if a person goes to school for psychology, and they don't have any basis to base that off of. I'm not asking it right, but let's see if you understand me. They don't have any basis, the short way of saying standard or anything to base that off of. Would they be actually causing the people that they do their help trying to help doing psychology, would they actually be causing them to adapt to society's way of seeing things and handling things? Did that question make sense? Did that question make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that question made sense. So one of the ladies that was on there, go ahead.
Before we answer that, I'm connecting that with also the video, because the real question that I'm really asking is, I would start out and say, how come? I'm gonna shorten it. Think about the video, the things that they said. I'm gonna shorten it, try to simplify it. Where we live in Kent, the surrounding area is very poor. The houses are not kept, anything like that. What would keep us as a group of people, of Black people, or even this group that we have, this men's group right here, what would keep us from going in and rebuilding that community and making it downtown area, Black,
No.
they were not or anything. White started area, and it became a valuable or a more expensive area as they raised the value of it. As they moved in there, they invested in it, all those kind of things. If we have the little area that I live in, Makai hasn't seen it, but Randall has, Michael has, and of course CJ. The area, just imagine a poor area. How come per se Black people cannot go into the area, buy the houses, lift them up, and cause it to be a valuable community? That's one question. Randall and Michael, you all feel free to give your thoughts on it. Do I need to ask another way?
I have too many thoughts.
What keeps us from building a community? How come we can't build a community?
I don't know. I think that what keeps us building a community is lack of unity. There has to be something that I guess, I don't know. I just think about when you think about slavery, what slavery did, how slavery was so effective was that it caused the slaves, the oppression that was placed on the slaves was so strong that it caused them to, reliably say, be individualistic. So they would do anything to escape what they were going through, to escape their situation. If it means to step on another slave or rat another one out to make their condition a little better, they would do anything and to please the master. And so it made the so it was really effective. One of the things that made it really effective. So I think when you ask questions in the community, it always takes, in my mind, a unity. There has to be some kind of cohesiveness between each other. If we're not all striving for the same cause, the same purpose, then it's like you're a bunch of sticks. You think of a house, for example. You know, if you get that individualistic thinking in your head, or let me say it this way: the wood, the 2x4s in the house. What binds the 2x4 in the house? You say the nails. When you take out the nails, you just got a bunch of sticks. So the nails is what binds the wood together to form a house. So there has to be something that binds us as a people to build a community. And without that thing that's binding us, we're just a bunch of individuals. They'll never build it. That's just my thoughts.
Fair enough, Chris. I think that's pretty good. To summarize just a little bit, having an individual, I'm summarizing, having Chris touched on having an individual or if I could say independent perspective. In other words, if I were to shorten that, we have a tendency to think about us, me, and my job, and me working and making money for my house, those kind of things. I'm just making it's light. So Chris is hitting on, and I think that's true, that we think. That was one thing he touched on, and I can't remember the other thing that was coming to my mind. If you want to make adjustments to that, Chris, you can. Okay, so anybody else?
I think the reason why we can't do something like that is exactly like my dad said, a lack of unity. There's a lot of, and I guess, inherent mistrust because people think of each other as individuals. So there's a lot of mistrust. I can't trust you because you may screw me over, and that's a big reason why we can't simply just walk into some place and try to build something.
I agree, Chris. I think that's all of that. Very good. Unity, mistrust. Those are things that come up. So the question that I had, one of the questions that I had was, I'm going to try to remember. All right, let me see if I can build a framework so you give you a picture. Diabetes, sugar diabetes, is commonly known among Black people. White people have diabetes too, but it's huge in Black people. That's a huge disease problem that we have. Also, high blood pressure. So, using that as an example, as a nation or as a race of people, we have not looked at diabetes from the perspective of it is a psychological disease. So psychology is the word that I'm looking at. So psychology. And it's a psychological disease. Let me explain what I mean by that. If a person's psyche or psychology, if you don't understand what I mean by that, look the word up. If a person's psyche or psychology is, or their culture is a certain way, and let's say you are trying to change the psychology, another race changes the psychology of this particular race. They're trying to make them adapt to and live the life of psychology of this dominant race. Are you following me so far? If that psychology is different than my natural psychology, my natural psyche, what was my natural psyche, if it is different than that, then what happens is I can be beginning to be under oppression. Anytime this is just a light example. I'm under oppression. And what begins to happen is we have coping mechanisms. So meaning I begin as my psyche is being changed and it is changing me from what I normally supposed to be, then I begin to have cravings. Uh, uh, things like that.
You're breaking up really bad, Uncle Tracy.
Somebody else.
Still there? It's like you gone.
Somebody else will have to pick it up because it's probably going to drop.
Mhm. What's-
The last thing that I heard you say was that I think you're getting to the point of the effects or coping mechanisms. You said something like once a person's or a people's psyche, I guess, is being forced to adapt or act or structure it in a way that's unnatural to it, then we have certain reactions to that. And I think you were talking about coping or something like that, but that's the last thing that I heard.
I'm not going to be able to continue. Y'all are going to have to just continue with that. But yes,
Yeah, is that the main point though?
right now, that's
Okay.
the main point. Are you all hearing me fine
Yeah.
right now?
Yes.
Okay. So a part of what CJ said, he summed it up very well. The question that I had is, in order to build a healthy community, would you have to change the psyche of the Black people? Would you have to change their psychology of Black people in order to have and build a healthy community?
I would like to step in. Can everybody hear me okay? Tracy, am I cutting you off?
Yeah, you're kind of cutting off.
Wow. All right, well, I'll just wait.
So more challenging. Is the Black psyche is the psyche of Black people, if it is changed and it causes certain behaviors, it causes us to have envy, different things like that. If the psyche is changed, this is far out. Does this what we learn in school, our education, does it impact our psyche in the negative or in positive?
Yeah. Tracy, you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. When I brought up earlier, when I shared what I thought of the question, I brought up of oppression. The oppression really is what causes you to think individualistic. It is a coping mechanism. That's what I'm saying. And you kind of basically said it, just reworded it a different way. It is a coping mechanism. It is a way of handling. It's a way of escape to relieve the pressure, the weight on you, and you'll do anything to relieve that weight. That causes you, the weight, the oppression is what's causing you to be individualistic. And you see this worldwide. I've done little studies on ghettos around the world, and what is a common trend, whether it's in Rio de Janeiro or it's in the Philippines or it's in just pick a country, wherever it's at. It's always you see the same pattern where you have people who is doing the oppression and then you see the reaction from that. And it looks very similar to the situation that African Americans in this country. It looks just like it. But you see that the people who are being oppressed are always, they think individualistic. And it's their way of escape, a way of trying to cope, they're trying to get out of the system, get out of the pressure, the oppression. So, but you made a point that I thought was really interesting. And when you said you cannot change the psychology of the people, and that's very true, because I'm okay with education and all this kind of stuff, but there's a point of education that is not founded on the right foundation. Education, if your principle, if this, for example, this country was built on an individualistic thinking, and the reason why we have education is based on the same principle. It is not to build a community. It is, I'm really trying to keep it, without taking this too far. But, so, and education was meant to build, the whole purpose of it was to keep a structure intact. It was not to form a community of people where we're all equal, but it's more used to keep a pre-existing structure that was already set intact with an individualistic culture. And so when you have, an oppression, and I'm giving words, when the people are under oppression, it causes them to think individualistic. But in order for them to build a community, that is something that they have to rid their mind out of. This is remove that from their heart, remove that from their mind. This is kind of what Israel went through in the wilderness. And this is part of what the scripture is saying when it says, love thy neighbor as thyself. It says not being an individual. And so you see oppression creates this coping mechanism. And in order to build a community, you're going to have to remove those things, as Chris Jr. said, trust, because of the mistrust. And you have to remove those things, those weights that causes people to think about themselves only.
Chris the last part of what you said is really tying in real well to what I'm starting to point at.
I don't know. I'll mention something about education. I wanted to ask group, 'cause I don't know how that sounds. That can sound way out there. So I want to ask the group, did you, if I'll just say this, if there was any misunderstanding, is what I mean by I'm talking about education and building how I mentioned it, just say something. Don't not say nothing, but I want you to say something so I can clarify myself, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying that education is wrong. It's not, but it's the reason why we pursue it is what makes it wrong. And it's that's what I'm dealing at. That's what my main point. And so I think that if the heart of a person is corrupt, everything he does is going to support that corruption. Whether if I go to school, whether if I get married, or whatever I do, it's always going to be from that same foundation. And the only way to correct that is that you have to have a whole new foundation, a whole new reason why I'm doing things, everything. And you think about it today, the reason why people get married today, and it's, I'm actually reading on this thing, and this guy was explaining why people get married today. It's not for love, it's more of a way of, actually a guy at my job was telling me this. He was saying that it's more of a business, and it helps them acquire more things, houses, cars, and all these things. And so again, you start seeing the same structure because the foundation is incorrect. So as a people, I think that, again, I'm kind of going back over what I said, but to build a community, well, yeah, to get over, there's going to have to be some killing from the things that we are holding against one another. And I say it that way because oppression always causes you to mistrust your neighbor, always does. And that's a common trend that you see. I noticed that when you look at other regions of the world that has, extreme oppression, it always causes people to mistrust each other. And then that causes wounds and hurts between one another. But what's backwards to me was that you mistrust one another, but yet the person who's applying the oppression on you, you're more open to them. The one who's doing it, causing the oppression, but between one another, you don't trust each other. It's backwards. I don't get it.
So I don't know how well what I'm gonna say ties in, but we tried to do a puzzle. So Auntie B's really good with puzzles. So it's, for me, it reminds me of Uncle Tracy. He's really good at puzzles, but his puzzles are like this, right? So a bunch of pieces, a bunch of men connect. And then Auntie B, like, she's really good at like actual puzzles. And so as a family, it was like me, Jess, Josh, Mom. I wanted to see if we could do a puzzle. And it brought up what we're talking about. It brought up some of the individualistic behaviors and coping mechanisms that we have. So it's one puzzle, but it's, again, 4 people trying to complete that one puzzle. And for me, what I was seeing happen was what you're talking about, the trust, the lack of trust, in terms of, this is my part of the puzzle. I do this part, you do that part, you do that part, and I do this part, and then we can finish the puzzle. And what I was trying to explain is, okay, wait a second. Auntie B has done these puzzles by herself, right? How is it that she got them done? It wasn't, okay, I don't believe it was, I'm gonna only take the blue pieces, I'm gonna get all the blue pieces done first, and then I'll go to a different piece. It wasn't per se in sections like that. It was, I have to create a foundation. I need to understand my limits. I need to understand my box, and then understand that everything else has a place within that box. So in terms of like that, that's something that I see and I struggle with. With some of my friends, some examples that I see are, again, why would I change for the better? Why would I choose healing when there's somebody who's literally next door that won't choose that? That there's somebody down the street that wants to kill me. There's somebody. It was just bringing up some of the last of what you said, Chris, in terms of trusting the oppressor more than you trust those that are oppressed with you. And kind of ties into a conversation me and Uncle Tracy had before he left. He was talking about humble, he was talking about meek, and he was talking about things like that. And again, it's interesting talking to him because he uses words that, again, I already know. I know what humble is. I know what meek is, but you have no viable example of what those words mean and how to actually live in those words. Because, yeah. So, I don't know if all that connected, but I see it as a puzzle piece, and we again have to change the individualistic nature of this is mine, and that's something that the Johnsons, you hear that with well, anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I was hearing.
So can we find unity with, is it possible that what we think or how we have been educated plays a part in our inability to unite?
I would say yes, mainly because education starts in the home. And a lot of times the school education that we go to is more of, I can't educate you, or I don't have time for you anymore, so you need to go get out of the house and learn about life. And so that puts a sort of reliance on the system that shouldn't be there. And the primary point of education, again, is in the home. And I'm not saying that education in the school system, sending a child out to learn, is bad, but it's only useful when the foundation of the home has been set. Otherwise, that child will learn to rely on the system and how they tell them to learn and what they tell them to think in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's right, Makai. I like what you said. I think that education, it's really teaches you to be independent and not to build a community. You don't, and it's like I don't know. It's like, let's say that I was talking about this before, how the cost of living is lower, how it's higher than what the average pay is. Well, so it causes you, because of the cost of living is higher than the pay, it causes you always have to buy and get loans and get these type of things to keep your head above water. So that causes that oppression that you never have enough money because you always worried about your life. You always have to get these loans to keep your, to fix your car. You think about fixing a car today, it's so expensive. The engine goes out. They can be 10,000 easy. Average labor rate for mechanic to fix a car, 150, 200 an hour. People can't afford it, so people get credit cards and they charge it out. But yet it keeps this oppression that the leaders of this country, let me try to explain myself better. I was reading an article and it was explaining how that leaders of this country, I got a 300% pay increase. Well, the average blue collar person, average worker in this country got a 7%. And in actuality, it was 2% when you add in inflation. They're saying one of the things that's driving inflation is that the greed of the people in the who's calling the shots, of the CEOs. They want more, so they raise the cost of goods to get more. They call it greed inflation. So the cost of goods rise because they want more. It's not because it costs more to make it. They just want more. And there is no increase. There's nothing that can satisfy that. But that is an oppression from the people at the bottom. So it causes me, I can't think about you. I got to worry about myself. So I'm going to school because I got to worry about myself. I can only care about myself. And so when you look at Tracy's initial point about changing psychology, if you take that psychology and you have African Americans and adopt that same psychology, we're only going to support a system that's already been established. We'll never build a community together. We're just integrate. And the oppression does not allow communities to be built. It requires integration. That's the thing that I cannot stand. Money is always the cause of breaking up something. If you can't conquer someone and you integrate them, you give them money, and that will cause them to fight amongst each other. And so that's what you're seeing happening there.
And that's that was something that I was hearing in that video. In terms of the goal is not unity, as a whole, as society. And so what you and Mac talked about with education and the problems is not that educating yourself is the problem. It's that educating yourself without a foundation. I think that's Uncle Tracy's point, like you were saying. Educating yourself without a foundation does nothing but cause you to go further into that oppressed state and causes you to do you called it greed inflation. It causes you to, a lot of verses just shot in my head, but I think one way to achieve the unity that we're wanting and seeking is by educating ourselves like we're doing, if that makes sense. It's by gathering the information from interactions like what Uncle Tracy was talking about, that he was on with his on his vacation, gathering the information to understand that the way to combat it is by getting out of the system. So it's again hard, because that's the point. How do you get out of the system and create this unity without integrating? And that's what brings back to my mind the difference between, so he was talking about charity. I believe charity is what he was referencing with this. I might get the word mixed up, but the focal point of what he was talking about was how the 7 times 70 in forgiving your brother, that when somebody goes through slavery, somebody goes through these things, just because they get all the leaven out, does that mean that they didn't have any leaven in them? Does that mean that they still won't make mistakes because they started on the journey to unity? So I think a way to achieve the unity that we're speaking of is by continuing with this, but that's not a cop-out. What I'm meaning is we all understand that this isn't going to happen overnight, because, and this is something that in talking with Auntie B that I'm really having to see. She said something about herself. She was like, I started learning how to give other people space once I saw just how much space I needed. And that was something that kind of, it was like, wow, because again, that's why I kind of brought up the puzzle. We always think that we have our own space. So that can lead to the greed, inflation, and stuff like that. That in my space, I need more money to make my space what I wanted. So my vision, this is my space. This is, in the video I was talking about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that you have unalienable rights given to you by your creator that we have just basically nullified with our actions. And I feel that, like a way to get to it is by understanding charity, understanding who that goes to, because it goes to your brother, it does not go to the oppressor. It's something that Uncle Tracy said, like one of the first times that we talked, he talked about, it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on, you both sides have to make concessions. Both sides have to give something up in order to make it into heaven. So the oppressed and the oppressor both have to give something up. And I think as an oppressed people, what we have to give up is our knowledge, all of these things that we say have made us what and who we are. What I'm trying to say by that is I hear a lot of people my age, friends and stuff, people that I've come into contact with that talk about, I'm a product of my environment. And that was something that I almost don't like, right? Because even in that video, I was talking about, we talked about this is something that's been discussed 25 years ago. They're talking about it then, and we're still talking about it now. So what I'm trying to say by that is I stop looking at it so much as the environment is what makes you. It is what you allow to make you. that is your environment. And Uncle Tracy has said something about the different gods, and that they are, it kind of like so how we see our planet system, right? So like you have this planet that's far from the sun, it doesn't get as much light, and you keep going and you get to the planet that's closest to the sun. So what I'm saying is we have to give up that. Well, I mean, I was just born here. I have to go to school. So, because Chris, you're talking about the cost of living now is higher than the wages that we're being paid. And I feel, again, that one of the only ways you can ever right that is stop I'm a product of my environment, because nobody wants to take that step off of the path, right? Because again, what you and Micaiah both said is that education's not bad. You have to understand where it starts. And CJ, said some, what I think is radical stuff a while ago. He was talking about the Bible. And again, how I view my brother as a scholar, right? So it's like he likes to read and stuff. So I'm thinking the Bible's going to be his best friend. And he's talking about, if I have the ability to have kids, if I get blessed with kids, I'm not going to let them read the Bible. Or that's not the first point that they're going to encounter truth. And I think that's kind of what you guys were saying, having to release that in order to get yourself out, you have to just bite down on the bridle, on the bit, and then just plow ahead. It's not about that. It's about forgetting everything that would make you do that, because it's again, the family structure was something that was never set up for the oppressed people. So for poor people, for people that could be taken advantage of, that was never in the cards. It was, you look at my family, right? So it's again, and this is something that kind of has messed my mind up, where it's like you had Black women caring for white babies, but you didn't have, okay, so you had Black women caring for white babies, and you had white women caring for Black babies, and you see the discrepancy between the two, where one thing that, again, what you brought up, Chris, that we see is that it's easier to take care of some of your environment if you think your environment is what gave you the ability to be where you are. I'm starting to ramble. So I was just trying to say again that it's more about not being complacent, not accepting, this is just my lot in life. It's never about accepting that, if that makes sense. It's about fulfilling your true potential.
I think a lot of interesting points have been brought out. I partially am responding to what Jalen shared, but also Chris. One thing is, as you all know, I don't know if it's worth clearing up or whatever, but I did go to college. I am college educated. And with the conversation that's been had, it's not a point of taking it personally. Just so I would say on one hand that many of the points that have been brought up specifically about the education system are things that whether I saw before, I'm beginning to see and understand. But I also believe, like Micaiah was saying, in trying to understand what education is. So just as Uncle Tracy used psychology, the way that he used that word was very interesting to me, at least. One of the things that it made me think of the verse in the New Testament that talks about not conforming to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I think that in one sense is what Uncle Tracy is referring to as far as psyche or psychology. Then raises the question, what is education? it is very obvious to talk about education, the education system. And by saying this, I'm not trying to dilute, nor am I trying to defend the education system, but it ties to what Micaiah said as far as education and the foundation being set in the home. That's part, Jalen mentioned it about the Bible. That's part of why I expressed it, because as I've worked, as I've been living with Auntie B and Uncle Tracy, as I've learned from those relationships, one of the things that I have seen clearly, and it's so whether it's with the Bible, whether it's with the internet, the experiences that people have in life, it's not the point that they make a false conclusion. That's not the biggest, that's not the biggest deal to me. The biggest deal is that there is, in one, or I would say on one hand, a lack of interest in ever finding what is right or what is true. So the point to where people don't challenge or don't challenge themselves, don't allow space or whatever for being challenged to prove what is right or what is true. And I think that's my bigger that's my bigger issue. So the point of with education is I see education a part relating to what Micaiah said when it says train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old he won't depart from it. It's that sort of idea, but in a neutral sense. It also reminds me of when Uncle Tracy talks about fear or God with a little g, in that where our sights are, what we fear, in one sense, how we are trained is our education. So whether it is we're out on the streets, and because of the things that we experience, this is how our mind thinks. This is how we process things. These are the conclusions that we make. This is how we behave. I see that as a point, or I see that as education. And so in understanding that, I think that Jalen brought up at the end, really, I think he tied it into the point of the men's group. We've talked about it, the point of father going through a process of being renewed and fearing God and keeping his Sabbath. There's a point of training, and that is something that we go through that process, and then that is how we train generation after the next. And that is what, in one sense, keeps them separate, because this is also what Uncle Tracy said as far as Black people creating a community. I think that there is a point where it's a natural, the separation from something is a natural result. So it's not just a reaction. It's not just a reaction, oh, I see this happening and I'm going to do the opposite. It's a natural result to fearing God. There's a point, a natural point of separation. The Church of God had a surface representation of what that was supposed to look like, and you see the falsehood of how they separate. They say that they separate from the world through their love and relationship with God. But I think that really the point, and this isn't to bash the church, but really the point of what Uncle Tracy has been saying about getting out of the system and establishing standard in a relationship with God, that will naturally result in being separate. The idea of being circumcised and being separate from the world, how they see things, how they behave, etc. So.
That was some pretty good stuff. He made several points that was very clear, that really stood out. To sum up part of it, the question would be, can you ever develop unity or trust without a standard? And so we generally talk about standard. We generally, oh, here we go, standard again. The thing is, what happens is with our, so then I would go to, which goes to the video. The Constitution is the standard of America, the United States. The Constitution is the standard. My question would be, did a major portion of the Constitution derive from a point of rebellion from England and from the war that was happening, the Boston Tea Party, all of those things that happened those times? Did that have any shape on the law? The Constitution, did all men are created equal? Did that come from a rebellion from what happened to England, what was happening with England and the war with England, but it did not take in consideration two other races? Because rebellion also blinds you. It's almost a quick way of relieving something, but yet you're blind and you have not taken in consideration some other points. And then that Constitution begins to be the standard that everybody, with something that Jalen said, that everybody, this is what we unite behind. If that is the case, can that Constitution also be a part, or the handling of it be a part of the changing of the psychology of Black people, the psyche?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you asked that as a rhetorical question, but I would say yes to that, Uncle Tracy.
I don't know if I understood the nature of the question correctly, but I hope this is understood, but the Constitution was written by thieves for thieves. It wasn't written for anyone who was really upstanding in that sense. It was, and you see it even almost today, not the thieving part of it, but the aspect of diversity. All, they use the word all. Well, every time there's a situation in America, the answer is diversify. Pull on other people's resources, integrate them into us. And you even see that with the Black movement. Every time there's a Black movement, it becomes about, well, the feminist movement or the LGBTQ whatever movement. And it is robbed more than it is given, even at its initial writing.
What you said, Mikhail, I find very interesting, given the fact that what you said is exactly correct on how this country has been behaving and the whole stance when it comes to issues like this. It's really quick to shirk blame away from themselves, or to make an issue, like an actual issue, kind of like I call it a non-argument. And given the example of in a way, Black Lives Matter. You can excuse that, but how people were bringing up on the fact that how police brutality is terrible, and the fact that a lot of Black people are dying and it's like nothing's happening to it. You then around the same time, you had people saying that no, it's not just about Black Lives Matter, it's all lives matter. And with how that is presented, with how what they said, with all lives matter, is basically diminishing the whole point of why people were crying out that that this needs to stop. It diminishes the entire point when you just come in and say all lives matter, even though we're not talking about all lives. We're talking about in the specific issue that we are having, that Black people are dying constantly, and it defeats your argument when you come in and say all lives matter, because it's not what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
Randall, Michael, Shane. All right, we're ready to close.
Well, I want to share something. Something what Chris Jr. was talking about, police brutality, and all that. I've done some little researching, and from 1865 when slavery ended to 1950, they say up to 4,000 African Americans were lynched. Now that's what was reported. That does not, that number does not reflect those that was not reported. So in the 85 year period, there was up to 4,000 African Americans were lynched. Now, the Tulsa riots, they say upward to about I can't remember. But it was the initial, what they reported that had lost their lives in the Tulsa riot was far below what the truth was. So as I dug into it, and I found that it was something crazy, something like 8,000-9,000 people. So when you gather is you add in the lynchings and the Tulsa riots, just those two. They say you got almost what, not 13,000 people lost their lives in the 85-year period. That does not include all the riots and the police killings in that 85 period. I'm only using those two incidents. So when you do the average in that, you are talking about in an 85-year period, over 100 African Americans lost their lives for 85 years. Every year. Just imagine the psychological damage on your mind when you see this year after year for 85 years straight. Now we know that these numbers are, this is far shorter than what it really was. Because we added all the other incidents that happened, it'll be much higher than 100 people. And I'm gonna hold that thought. I was in this conversation with this guy and the tool vendor, and he told me, what is our problem? We talking about black folks. What is our problem? And I was stunned when he said that. I was shocked. So I began to share what I thought, what I felt our problem is, how we weren't equal, how we're experiencing oppression. There's an oppression that's been placed on us. And he agreed, and then he tells me that you need to vote. That's why you need to vote. I couldn't even hear that. I almost vomited when he said that. The point is, when we talk about education and all of this stuff, and Trace talked about the psychology. And this is me speaking. Voting is all a part of that. Education and voting is all a part of the same system. This is what, how do you say, the U.S. Constitution, all those men who signed the names of the Constitution, on the Constitution, it was like saying that these men represented the descendants. And when they put their name on it, every American, every descendant will have these benefits. And still to this day, to become a U.S. citizen, you got to pledge allegiance to this country. African Americans are the only people that never pledged allegiance to the country. We had no one to sign for us on the U.S. Constitution. No one signed for us. We've never had a father sign a name on that Constitution that represents us. I don't think God ever intended that. I think there is something sacred that God is trying to protect. And because someone hit on it, I think it was, I don't know. But there's something sacred that God is protecting. And that thing is what causes people, it's the purpose of going through slavery and going through this challenge. It is to cause the people to learn to band together, to form a village, to begin to form a village, to build a village, not become an individual. But what has happened here lately, we begin to form more individual sizes because the more money we get, the more we begin to think about ourselves, and we begin to figure about the village that these our ancient ancestors built. So when you think of education, it is part of that psychology, that way of thought. And when I buy into that system, it's as if I am trying to get approval from the people who, the people who are over me. I would do anything for their approval. Whether I'll go to school, I'll do this, I'll do anything. This is something that the slaves struggled with. After slavery, they changed their names, and to white people names, they went and fought wars, man. They went and fought wars, bled for this country, thinking, hey, we're going to get freedom, and they will be accepted by them. We've done everything underneath the sun to be accepted by them. You think Michael Jordan, billionaire. Oprah Winfrey, billionaire. Jordan would never be accepted by the elite of this country because of the color of his skin, no matter how much money he has. That's part of what it means that in the scriptures, when it talks about Joseph, how the Israel talks about how that Egypt, I forget how it went, it says how Egypt forgot Joseph or something like that. But what it was really the Egyptians were prejudiced, or very prejudiced. And Joseph did this wondrous thing for Egypt when he interpreted the Pharaoh's dreams at that time, and during the famine. But it says the scripture goes on and says how the Egyptians forgot about that, what Joseph did. And so what that is, essence is what it's trying to bring out is that y'all put a division between Israel and Egypt. It was nothing that Joseph could have done or anyone could have done that caused Israel to integrate within Egypt. Y'all put a division between them. Because y'all is trying to protect something. And I see, look at this world, I see the same thing. There's nothing Black folks we can do as a people to get accepted or their approval. It was not meant to be. So we can get all the education we want to seek their approval, which still will not be accepted. We can become billionaires, it still will not be accepted. Because y'all is trying to protect something sacred. And I think as a people, we're going to have to accept that and learn not to embrace the philosophy, the psychology that is so influencing. We have to fight from trying to be accepted from that thing that is so influencing. We got to keep that out of us. And I think if we can do that as a people, we can actually form a community. And that will be a start of setting a standard, yes.
And along with what my dad said, I also feel like y'all put this separation in between us because that's our entire history in regards comes to America, that we've done literally everything to be accepted, and that y'all said put this block into it so we were never going to be accepted. And it's something that I've been thinking about lately, on how that I refuse to accept the legacy that is left by the world, and how education, how everything has been framed up in the world. I refuse that to be my legacy. I refuse that entirety, and how, because it's terror. It's messed up so many things, and it's just very oppressive on an individual, because you're constantly being pushed down by the world, but then told that you got to bring yourself up. So it reflects that mindset of when you are out there in the wilderness all by yourself and you're starving, and you see that there's other people with you, and these other people with you have food. So it gets into that mindset of, it's very cutthroat. Everybody for himself, a dog eat dog type stuff, to kill and steal, to make sure that you are good. And that is the worst type of mindset, the worst type of legacy to have when you're trying to go and fix something, or go into, it's terrible because you can't trust anybody, because you're stuck in this place, you're constantly stuck in this place of that, constantly stuck in this place of mistrust, thinking that somebody is going to be out there going there to screw you over because you have something. And yeah, that's it.
Chris, little Chris Jr. did a real good job, very good job of explaining the Black community, what he just said, what happens when they are oppressed or they are under that system. That explains Black on Black crime. It explains envy between brothers and why they cannot unite. Chris did a very descriptive explanation of what we look like, why we cannot unite, on those in his explanation.
Yeah.
There's a fix. And that could be a whole nother subject. We've talked about these things before. One of the things that happened while I was on this group, with the group, was they I was talking to an individual, and one of the comments was, I ended up saying, but there's a standard, right? And the person said, yes, there's a standard, but no man can find it. No man can find it. And they went through a list of things of saying, this person, Joseph so-and-so, thought he had it, he understood it. And when it boiled down to it, all kind of negative things happen. You're talking about David Koresh, whatever, all of these kind of things. And so no man can find the standard. And so my response back was, okay, you believe it's a standard, that there is a standard, but it can't be found. I said, do you really believe that God meant for once it's lost, it would be lost forever and nobody could ever find it? That it cannot be found? A part of what Chris Jr. said brought that to my mind, that without that, if there is no standard, then we live in an individual world. I said to them, there is something that applies to every race, every nation, everybody. There's a standard. All of the world, all of God's creation, the sun is the standard of his creation, and everything reacts or responds generally in the positive toward whatever the sun does. So it's just a concept. Another question that I asked was, we're talking about uniting. I said, does the Bible leave room for differences in between husband and wife in matters of truth? Does the Bible leave room for a husband and a wife to see truth differently? I've asked most of the people in the group that question. Does the Bible leave room for the husband to see a point of truth? Now, let me give you the foundation of why I was asking that. there's someone that doesn't eat pork. So I said, does your wife eat pork? And the answer is no, my wife does eat pork. So if the Bible stated that pork is wrong, is it a point of truth? And if it is a point of truth, does it leave room for the wife to be in a separate page on that particular issue as the husband, if it is a point of truth?
Mm-hmm.
And as I boiled it down with some of them, I can't remember what one of them said. The reason, yes, it's that way. Because I forgot what scripture he used it was a scripture he used, and it wasn't whatever. I wish I could remember it. But the answer was yes. Everybody sees things differently. But it was a biblical scripture they used to support that. And I said, if that is the to unity, if we on matters of truth. Now, it's a different story if we're talking about, I like the color red, I like the color blue, and my wife likes something different than me. That's a totally different world. But on matters of truth, we can see those truths differently. The person, I said, so one thing that I understand is how to find the standard. If it was ever lost and if it had ever been diminished, the scripture helps us to understand how it is to be found. And I said, no man can create that way. No man can create the way for it to be found. Meaning, when I say create, that's it's man-made. Oh, I'm gonna make a way so that we can find truth. There's no way that it can do it. No man can do it. The men that made a mistake, that's what they did. There's only one way, and Chris hit some of those points. That's the process that we go through. I said, truth is, finding the standard is always established by challenge or death. That challenge is not something I create for myself. It's not anything that I create for myself. It is how we are judged, things like that. All of those things and the challenges, or how we are proved, meaning going through something that reveals our weakness or our state of brokenness or our strength and our wholeness. Unless you go through something continually like that, you will never find what a standard is.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be willing to face challenge. You have to go through the challenge in order to be able to reestablish standard. It is not man-made.
Mm-hmm.
Are you following me?
Mm.
So that's just some of the questions why we cannot unite. Well, I don't agree. I feel like that if one person's opinion, I'm using the word opinion, overpowers another, then it is a violation. That's what we're really saying when we say that a woman, a wife, a husband and wife can see matters of truth differently. a woman or people, well then what's the difference between what we deal with in homosexuality now? The truth is homosexuality is normal and natural. That's how we see it. That's how society sees it. What is the difference between the wife arriving to something different or the husband arriving to something different on any point of truth than someone who is homosexuality arriving to the point of truth that homosexuality is really normal?
And with that, that's why I always thought that when it comes to truth in the Bible, you shouldn't come away from a different conclusion. You shouldn't conclude something different when it comes to truth, because as in a way it's similar to an opinion, because everyone has different perspectives, and from what I understood it, the Torah, it's supposed to be like a tree. You're not supposed to see that tree any other way, shape, or form than what it is. It's a tree, and you should not come to conclude that that tree is something else, because it's truth. It's something that's concrete. It's not meant to be changed or whatever.
That's right. You have it right, Chris. But where we are today, why we cannot unite is because truth is personalized.
Yes.
My truth, your truth, and all of our truths are different. So now you don't have a right to cross into the boundaries of someone that is homosexual, and his truth is that God made him that way.
You know, it's interesting. That's very interesting when you say it that way, Tracy, because I was in this conversation with someone and he sent me this video about Rome and how Rome was way back when, I forget what actually time period in Rome, but how Rome wanted a one world religion and how they began to integrate things to make this one world religion. And he was saying, so in the video was saying that Rome never completed that. And so I responded back to the guy and I said, well, Rome actually did complete that. I said that in so many words, I said, that's religion. I said the one world religion that Rome was building, the integration of all these religions together to form one, I said, is what you see today. It's called confusion. That's the one world religion, confusion. What you're expressing is the one world religion that Rome successfully built. It's called confusion. I have opinion, you have opinion, there is no standard. This is confusion. Now, when you read in Genesis, this is what it's saying when it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and earth. The earth was without form and void, darkness and in face of deep. Now, I'm gonna change some of this so it makes more sense what I'm trying to get at. And so when it says the earth was without form, it's really dealing with 2 points. It's dealing with confusion when it says earth without form and void, darkness. What darkness is something without form and void. So they're saying in the beginning, God, the earth was without form, without value and purpose. This is what it's saying. And it's saying that this was on the face of all man. It's saying this confusion was on the face of all man. That's what it means when it says this was on the face of the deep. This was on the face. This confusion was on the face of all man. So when he says, let there be light, there was a separation from confusion. There was a separation from that when y'all called light out of darkness. And so you see that from Genesis to Revelations where y'all keep separating, keeping something separate. And what you described, Tracy, is what I'm calling something sacred. Yahweh was protecting. He's protecting something. And again, from Cain and Abel, when you see it was a separation. You see from Cain, when y'all separated Cain from Adam and other descendants, you see it in Noah, in the flood, you see it in Egypt, you see it all throughout the Torah, where y'all keep separating light from darkness, light from darkness, light from darkness. He keeps doing that. And so you see it now when he created a thing that's between Black folks and white people. And we call it prejudice, but it actually is something that is to keep two apart. Because there's a protecting something here. From this, something being set apart is where a standard will be formed. Let there be light. This is where a standard will be formed. But you're going to go through something, as you said, we have to accept the challenge. And if we accept the challenge, this is where we begin to create a new heaven and new earth that I believe James is talking about in the scriptures. That's the whole purpose. You think in the Genesis, it's talking about a people struggle from the very first day to the sixth day and their rise to the top. In that rise, they will create a new heaven and earth. This is what Genesis is really bringing out. So, we have a lot of work to do. I don't want to make this seem I'm talking exclusive. It's all for Black people. No, not at all. I don't believe that, not one bit. I don't think that's in God's mind. But I do believe the first step of restoring this earth it falls on the Black people first. I'm not saying I believe it's exclusive, but there's something sacred that he's protecting from being at the bottom and rising to the top. There's something is creation in its effect. I can't get my words right, but I think you can understand what I'm trying to say. Creation in its workings, rising, starting at the bottom and rising to the top. We're to create a new standard, and that's what's beautiful. The sacredness of what y'all intended and why of what this challenge has created.
All right, we're through. I didn't get a chance to cover it the way that I wanted to really cover it because I'm on the road, but that gives us a little what I want to get to is at some point building a community. My thought is still on us buying up an area and putting value in it until it is recognized as a valuable place. Changing lives. So my thought is still on that. Maybe next time I'm not sure what's going to happen when we have our next one, but if it's still a part of what I'm feeling, then we might go deeper into it. Shane, are you there?
Yes.
You didn't say anything. What's your thoughts?
On what specifically?
Just give me a general overall.
Generally,
of what you summarize what you think you heard.
I mean, honestly, I was hearing a lot of things. Not all of it that I was catching on to or I was committing to memory, but I did hear a lot about you called it a standard, yes, standard, and about the psychology of or the psyche of it's called, and psyche and education. I have my thoughts of those specific little moments, the talking points. I have them all in one place, but not exactly of the entirety of what the entire conversation was about, because there are some parts that I generally didn't understand, but I didn't want to say any, I didn't want to interject anything because I felt like if I didn't have anything important to say, wasn't going to say it at all. But specifically, I largely agree with the whole psyche idea, because I had heard this from something else about changing the mindset of your situation could vastly change who you are as a person, or change stuff like that in general. But I don't want to go on a tangent because for sake. But yeah, it's mainly I'm understanding, and I'm understanding lots of parts of it. Some parts not as much, but I'm listening as well as I can.
Okay. Well, very good. I think the parts that you clarified is very good. Okay. Unless anybody has anything else, we can close and think about it. I really would. Like to go forward, like I said, in talking about areas in which we can change. How come we cannot start in an area? What does it take to start in an area that's degraded and put value in it to the point to where it becomes a healthy community? All right.
I think that would be an interesting
ahead.
conversation. I was just saying, I think that would be an interesting conversation and follow up to where we left off today. There are a couple of things that are already on my mind, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, we'll try to pick back up. All right, well, I'm going to say, see you guys. Thanks for being patient. I'm on the road, and my phone would drop sometimes, but then it would pick back up. And so I did the best we could with what we had.
I think it will. Okay, see everybody next week.
See you next week.